Hello, and welcome to our
Welcome to our
Halloween
Halloween
themed
series.
Level Up webinar series. We hope
We
you are
hope
enjoying
you are dressed
costumes today
as
as
we
we
discuss
discuss
the
the
scary
scariest things we've
things
seen
we've
in
seen in
databases.
databases.
My name
My
is Robert
name is Robert
Hernandez.
Hernandez.
Well,
Wait
wait
a
a minute.
minute.
All right, there we go. Welcome everybody. My name is Kevin Wood, and I will make that official in Zoom here in 1 second. Thank you for joining us for today's Level Up webinar for October. We're a day away from Halloween, so we thought we would dress up as duplicate records and start a
Shout
web.
out to the Black Bag community for the idea, Robbie Store.
Yeah, thank you for that. So yeah, today we're talking about avoiding database nightmares. We were going to start off with introductions. Here we go. Christine, you want to go?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Christine Robertson. I am the consulting manager here at NPact. So I do Razor's Edge consulting, a little bit in Virtuous, and I also help manage our team of consultants. So working in a wide range of products. Glad to have you all, and we'd love to meet you in the chat. Kevin, I'll pass to you.
Yep. Yeah, welcome everyone. My name is Kevin Wood, business development manager here at NPact. We are so happy for everyone to be here today. I've worked at NPact for almost 3 years now as primarily as a Razor's Edge consultant. And so very excited to bring you these topics today. So our agenda, we're going to focus our talk kind of around the Donor Bill of Rights. And hopefully this is something that you all are familiar with. But we thought this was kind of a good idea to introduce, if it's not familiar, to introduce what the Donor Bill of Rights are. And then we kind of pulled 4 of them out as kind of ways to introduce kind of the things that we're going to be talking about today. A little bit of housekeeping. We are recording this webinar. It'll be sent out to everyone by tomorrow. Yeah, feel free. There's a question and answer and chat available. So make sure you all, we'd love for you guys to introduce yourself, have questions, throw them in the Q&A. We'll be watching that throughout our time together today. And then we'll have a slide at the end to talk about anything that you all would like to share. And if anything comes up as we're kind of talking about the scary things we've seen, if you have your own stories, we'd love to hear them in the chat. So please feel free to throw them out there. Now, like we always do, we're going to start off with some poll questions. And let me launch this first one. There we go. So what role do you primarily play in your organization? I know we all have a bunch of hats, and so we all may fall into all these categories, but pick the one that you fall into the most.
A lot of data managers today.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I was talking to my wife about this today, and I told her, I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna dress up in costumes and we're gonna be duplicate records. And she's like, that is the nerdiest thing that I've ever heard. And I was like, but I'm gonna be with my people today. So hopefully you all found that a little
Absolutely.
funny. All right, so we got a bunch of data managers here. Next question. My slide will progress. There we go. What CRM do you use? Per the usual, we have a lot of Razor's Edge people, if not everybody. These stories that we share with you today are not specific to any one CRM, but as you saw from our duplicate management, we'll primarily talk about RE, and we've got somebody from Bloomerang. Awesome,
All right.
cool. Moving on. So we talked about the Donor Bill of Rights, and this is 31 years old. I was just looking up, doing a little research before we started today. This was created in 1993, and it was a joint effort of all the people, all the icons you see there. So AFP, AHP, CASE, and the Giving Institute, and those are kind of membership organizations for a lot of our nonprofits. Christine will put a link in the chat that has a link to their web page that has this, and also upload a PDF that you can download and read. When I worked in the industry, I always printed this out and kind of put it up on my bulletin board, because this is a good reminder for us data managers as to kind of what we're doing with the information, our donor information, our constituent information once we get it. So we're going to jump into it. I do have a disclaimer, though. We have a lot of our current and former clients on the call with us today. We are just going to be sharing stories that we've heard from different walks of life for our time in the industry. So we are not specifically calling out any specific clients that we're currently or have worked with. So no intention to offend, but we're going to be sharing these stories in good light and a little bit of humor. So the first one we're going to talk about is Bill of Right number 4, to be assured that gifts will be used for the purposes of which they've given. And I have seen organizations that have one fund for unrestricted and one fund for temp restricted and one fund for permanently restricted. And that's the way that the gift are kept track of in the CRM. Once that information gets to our accounting software, it probably is kept track of a little differently. We have some different buckets. Those buckets are designed, they should be matched up between your CRM and your accounting software. And kind of the purpose for that is thinking about stewardship and having the end result in mind, because we are going to be timely. We're going to be receiving in a timely manner. We're going to be acknowledging in a timely manner. And we want the information that follows the gift along to be included in your receipts and acknowledgments. So it's very important that if the donor tells you that they want their gift going to a specific fund or purpose, we want that information reflected in the receipt, in the acknowledgement. So what else is important? So gift entry procedures that are followed by everyone is very important. Having those documented. And we're not perfect. Errors will occur. Donors will often change their mind as well. So if they tell you they want their gift going to the area of greatest need, and you put that in and you send them the receipt, and they call you back and say, actually, I want my gift going to the specific program or the specific team or what have you. Having a documented gift adjustment policy as well is very important. Because you will have some things you need to do on the CRM side. You'll need to pass that information through to the general ledger, and the information needs to be kept track of there as well. So having all of those things documented is very important. Christine, do you have any for this one?
Yeah, one of the scary things I've seen along these lines is putting designation information in the gift reference field or in a notepad, basically any free text field. So if you're not in Razor's Edge, I'm sure you still have free text fields that may have different names. If that's where you're putting that information, it hinders how you can report on it. It hinders how you can find it. And let's be honest, every time someone makes a typo, it means you're likely to miss it because your query won't catch the typo the same as it would catch a code table entry. So I think that's one specific scary piece I've seen with that. Also just scary to see sometimes when you have duplicates because someone made a typo in a fund field. So then you end up with 2 or 3 copies of the same fund that may or may not all be linked to GL numbers and all different things. So if you have any scary things that you've seen as far as how gifts aren't actually able to be tracked in the way that they need to be, throw those in the chat. We'd love to hear them.
Yeah, and what's nice about our new online donation forms in Razor Edge NXT is that oftentimes records will be automatically created if your settings are set that way. And so making sure having some process where you're checking that on a daily or weekly basis, so that if the donor filled out their donation form and maybe they put Kevin and Joywood or Kevin and Joy is the first name, that may get a new record created, and that shouldn't be the intention. So make sure you're checking those that activity as well. Next one, Bill 5, to receive appropriate acknowledgement and recognition. Christine, what do you got?
Oh goodness, so many things. One of the things that I think with appropriate acknowledgement and recognition that I've seen that scares me is people collecting gifts and not getting any information to acknowledge donors, not marking gifts as needing acknowledgement, not using the tools that are pre-built in order to send acknowledgement. And recognition would be, what are you doing with your soft credits? So I don't know that I coined this phrase, but because I've heard other people using it, but there's the going Oprah with your soft credits, where you get a soft credit and you get a soft credit and you get a soft credit. And what can happen with that is we have so many soft credits that we can't actually use them to appropriately recognize the right people, because maybe you soft credited me because my grandma's best friend gave a gift that I don't actually have a legitimate connection to. So working out some ways to figure out what are the problems that are causing us not to be able to thank people. Maybe we didn't check the send mailbox on the address. Maybe we coded them for does not want mail, but they need a letter, and we're using that does not want mail as a way to suppress that. And then also looking at recognition for soft credits. Kevin, what about you? What have you seen people do that is preventing these key functionalities?
Yeah, I think from the basic level, just straight up not acknowledging gifts is something that is very scary. We want to make sure that our acknowledgments are timely. And so a shameless plug for next month's Level Up webinar, we're going to be talking about automation and workflows. And so using the technology available for our Razor's Edge NXT people, using workflows to be able to filter any specific gifts that need a specific kind of handling, whether that's an acknowledgement, a receipt, a phone call, an email, a visit, maybe you send them a gift basket, but using those tools that are available for us so that we don't have to think about to go in and check on a daily basis, that it kind of does it for you.
And one other thing I thought about with acknowledgements, and this is near and dear to my heart, make sure your donors' names are right. So years ago, I had a name change, and I contacted this organization that I loved, and I said, please change my name. This is how it needs to be on your correspondence to me. I got another mailing. It was wrong. And working in this industry as we do, I thought, oh, they just had the list. They didn't fix it. I waited a few months. It was still wrong. So I contacted them a total of 3 times before they got my name fixed. And I think that if we're talking about recognition and we're talking about acknowledgement, we have to get people's names right. We have to get their addresses right. These are all so basic to what we do, and yet they are so easy to miss, but they're also really easy to lose a relationship over. So keep the main thing, and keep your basics in front of mind.
Yeah, for most everybody, this is not a big deal. Like your name spelled wrong, it's not a huge deal, but for the wrong person, it could have catastrophic impact. And so I always kind of think about, how do we handle our most loyal donors or our biggest donors, making sure if they tell you this is how I want my name spelled or presented, it has to be done that way. Next up, Bill 6, to be assured that information about their donation is handled with respect and with confidentiality to the extent provided by law.
So first thing for this for me is, are you emailing spreadsheets with donor data in them? If so, that is very problematic in the sense that this data can be hacked. It can be corrupted. You run so many risks. So the less you are emailing data, the less you are pulling it out and manipulating it in Excel. I think that's a big piece of the respect and confidentiality. I think I love new technology. I love trying out new things, but I think this is also a key thing we need to be aware of as an industry when we're talking about AI, Chat GPT. What data are you putting into Chat GPT? Do you know where that data is getting used when you're working with AI? Something like Chat GPT that's open, it's not very secure. So be very cautious with that. Be very cautious as an organization, because those are really scary areas. When you make a mistake, you run the risk of not just having that data in the wind, but a long term, we could be running the risk of lawsuits and things like that. Another piece I think with this is, what are your user rights? I've worked with multiple clients, and this is actually a positive client statement, so I have no shame in saying this. I've worked with multiple clients where one of our big challenges has been, how do we set up Razor's Edge to make sure that people can see what they need to see and they can't see what they don't need to see? Maybe you have certain constituent records that really need to be protected. They have very sensitive connections. I had one organization where there was a donor who was a major donor, but wanted to be 100% anonymous. We needed some information in the system. So we set up a constituent code. I cannot say that word today. We set up a constituent code very specifically for this donor. Normally, I don't do a one-off constituent code, but for this circumstance, it worked really well. We set up that constituent code. We set it so that only the database supervisor users could see that record anymore. We locked down the constituency for everyone else because they didn't need to see that donor. There's a lot of those kinds of things that I think we really need to think about. Who can see gift information? Does your program staff need Razor's Edge for addresses? Great, but maybe they shouldn't have gift access. Or maybe if you have different branches, you need to lock down security by funds so that the North branch can't see the giving for the South branch and vice versa. So there's so many pieces in that where we have opportunity to avoid the scary things and respect our donors and their confidentiality just with how we set up our security. And the other piece to this is, if fields are encrypted in Razor's Edge, it's for a good reason. Don't put data that's supposed to be encrypted somewhere else. I've heard countless stories about credit card numbers in phone number fields, credit card numbers accidentally in name fields, credit card numbers in notepads, attributes. I'm sure in this group, you all can give me some other ideas, but those are not encrypted fields. The fields that Blackbaud built in for credit card fields on the gift and even on Bio 2, those are encrypted. And often I've heard people say, but if it's encrypted, I can't see it, so I can't use it later. Yes, but you can use it to charge the cards and to charge it in batch where we're supposed to, or within Razor's Edge. If it's not in an encrypted field and Blackbaud has another hack situation, it's subject to data breaches. If it's in an encrypted field, it's protected. We all hope there are no more breaches. And I know that there are lots of precautions being put in place. So I'm not trying to be scare tactics or accusatory. I'm just saying realistically, we all need to do everything we can do to handle this with respect. I will also say this means if someone writes their credit card number down, do not leave it sitting on your desk. I have seen this happen. Do not leave it sitting around. It's even in your desk drawer. That is not respect for that sensitive private data that your donor has given you. Kevin, what would you add?
Yeah, you just took mine. What
Sorry.
I've seen, and I may and not to throw any of my previous employers under the bus, I may have seen where we have credit card numbers written down that are on a post-it note that gets even maybe put in a safe, but for sure in a desk drawer that, oh, and when my reminder in Outlook goes off to charge this card every month, that I pull out that post-it note. That is certainly not PCI compliant. So just make sure we're handling that information with the utmost care. For if there's any healthcare foundations in there as well, we talk a lot about patient information. Make sure that you are just at least aware or have an understanding of how your foundation, your organization, your hospital, they have very strict things in place that are written for the hospital, but have to be followed by the foundation as well. So just make sure you understand what you are supposed to be doing with donor information, and making sure that you're following those rules. Okay, bill number 9, to have the opportunity for their names to be deleted from mailing lists that an organization may intend to share. One of the biggest ones I've seen, and this happens quite a bit in the industry, is organizations that use third-party email platforms such as MailChimp and Constant Contact, whatever else. And there's a number of reasons why you would want to use that as opposed to email marketing from Razor's Edge. But what will inevitably happen is you'll do that big export of your email names and email addresses out of Razor's Edge. You'll upload them to MailChimp or Constant Contact, and then your marketing department will take it from there. They will send out the emails. They'll create these fancy, pretty emails and send them out. and you will have constituents that are unsubscribing from your email communication. Which is great. MailChimp or Constant Contact won't use that information again, but that's where it lives and that's where it kind of ends up. That information may never get back into Razor's Edge. And so at some point in the future, you maybe do send out an email from email marketing, and now this person is magically back in the list and you're upsetting, you could be upsetting some important people. So having a process in place for getting that information back in, there are some free plugins in the Blackbaud marketplace, depending on what paid and free, depending on which third party that you use to bring that information back into Razor's Edge. So that's a big one. Another one, I know Christine mentioned it before about anonymous giving, but anonymous has to mean anonymous. So if a donor, you have that little checkbox on your form or maybe on your thing that they mail back to you that says, I wish to make this gift anonymously, you have to honor that and make sure that, maybe it's 10 months later, 11 months later, you're making your annual report and you just do like a kind of a normal export of your donors for the year and you don't pay attention to that anonymous field. Somebody's going to end up in the list and get upset. And remember, for our RE folks, there are two different places where we can keep track of anonymous giving. In one, on a constituent record can be marked as gives anonymously. And you can also have anonymous giving by gift as well. So making sure that you're looking at both of those locations when you're putting together kind of publications is important. And the way that I did it, when I would pull my annual report list, I would always pull those people off to the side and send them to the development director, the VP, the executive director, and say, here are the people that will be excluded or that have asked to make their gift anonymously. It's a really good touch point for your organization with those donors to say, hey, we're getting ready to send our annual report to the printer. Do you still want to make your gift anonymously? Oh, by the way, thanks for your giving this year. So it's a really good touch point that you can have with your donors just to make sure that they want to purposefully exclude their name from the list.
One other thing too, this may not affect all of you. I haven't looked to see what countries we have represented today, but in my work with countries in Europe and the UK specifically, there is some legislation there where if I, as a donor, call an organization and say, I want you to remove my name, they legally have to remove the name, the address, everything out of their CRM, out of their database. They cannot store it anywhere. And I say that it may not be effective for us in the US, but I think we have a responsibility to start thinking through some of those things and start thinking through what is our responsibility for this data if the donor or if the constituent has said, I don't want to be on your list, I don't want you to store this information. I know historically we've stored it all. We've stored tons of information. We've stored information we found on a website that the donor never even gave us. And I've done it too. So I don't have any judgment on anyone else in that statement, as much as I think we have a responsibility with this donor bill of rights to start really thinking about what should we do with this? Should we keep it? Do we need it? Do we have the donor or the constituent's permission to keep, use, etc.? And there's a lot of conversations and I don't have all the answers, but I think that's our responsibility to have those and think it through.
Yeah, one of the ways that donors give that has gained a lot of popularity over the last 2, 3, 4 years is giving from a donor advised fund, a family foundation. There is a couple of things that need to be looked at when those gifts come in. One is kind of the deductibility of the gift, but oftentimes the documentation that comes in with those gifts will say, this is how you need to list the organization. This is how you could, if you wanted to, list the donor that advised us to make this gift to you. So paying special attention to those kind of unique gifts or special gifts is super important, because oftentimes giving from family foundations and donor advised funds are usually have a higher gift amount. And so again, it's just super important to make sure that we're handling that information correctly. One of the things that I always like to share when we talk about annual reports is a good solicitation opportunity. I call it the printer's proof. And this is something that I'll do. Let's say our fiscal year ends June 30th. in the middle of May, maybe the end of May, I will put together a digital copy of our annual report. Now it's a lot of work because putting together an annual report is just a lot of work. But putting a kind of a digital magazine together and sending it out through email to all of your donors for the year, or even all of your prospective donors as well, and say, we've got a month left in our fiscal year. If we made the annual report today, here's what it would look like. And it does a couple of different things. One, it gives an opportunity for your donors to get to a higher giving support level if they wanted to. But it'll also, if you send it to the non-donors, it'll give your donors an opportunity to get their name printed in the list. But a third thing that it does is it allows you, and you could say this in the communication, it allows you to provide an opportunity for your donors to contact you and say, hey, my name is spelled wrong. I got married this year. I got divorced this year. I don't want my name listed. Please make it anonymous at this point. So it gives you that opportunity to have that touch point before you send it to the printer. Because once you send it to the printer, it's done. But it's important that the person that is receiving those calls or those emails from your donors is they're making sure that that information is updated in your CRM, because then at the end of the fiscal year, we're going to run it for real. We're going to print it for real, and you can have all those changes taken into account. Anything else with this one, Christine?
I don't think so.
Okay. Now, it's up to you guys now. I would love to hear any questions or comments of stuff that we talked about today, but also if you have any scary stories, we would love to hear them. And they could be hypotheticals as well. So this is things that could happen to my friend's organization. So if you don't want to say that I did this, but we would love to hear from you. And we are going to be doing, we had it in our publications and our LinkedIn posts, we are going to be raffling off some consulting time. And so we're going to be doing that on the next slide. So we will give you guys a minute if you want to add anything to the chat.
Absolutely.
And if not, we'd love to hear from you as well. So we'll have our email addresses here on one of our last slides. Feel free to send myself or Christine an email. If anything that we talked about today has sparked anything about needing any assistance from us, we would love to come in and help you.
Oh, yes. SSNs, storing those in their database. I mean, it was a standard practice before, and now we're trying to move away from that for security reasons. I have seen phone numbers used for credit card numbers, for t-shirt sizes, and my very favorite, I will just have to acknowledge this was a school. I will not say higher ed, K-12, but I will just say a school had their class years for all of their alumni in a phone number. It was very challenging to use. Yeah. And while we're, how many of you have had an import gone wrong? Somebody on the Black Bud community told us that in an import they had that went wrong with a prior employee, credit card numbers got put in the name field. So instead of being Christine Robertson, I would be Christine Visa, and then a few numbers after that. So I'm not giving you my Visa today. Just sorry, in case anyone was hoping for that. I think, we've all seen so many of these different pieces. Just this week I was working and I had a whole bunch of organization relationships that said none specified with the parentheses around it. And then they had no other information except for the relationship and reciprocal of employee and employer. I'm not really sure what those were for. Yes, I totally agree. Use the fields for their intended purpose, because when you use it for a different purpose, it's a mess. You can't use it as well. I very rarely will recommend any type of field repurposing. There's very, very few scenarios where I find it's worth it.
Yeah, and back to Emily's point, for a lot of student management systems, and for like schools and universities, it's imperative that you keep track of Social Security number in your SIS. But making sure that information stays there and doesn't come over is super important. And so a lot of the times we'll see these is during a conversion. And so, during a conversion, if we're not paying super close attention to it, we'll get a bunch of custom fields in the attributes. So making sure you review that and seeing what attributes are there that came over from in this case, your SIS or your previous database, to make sure that is really that you really want it to be there.
Candace had a Razor's Edge database with business names as phone numbers and job titles as phone numbers. Oh my goodness. And Emily is combining 3 school records for 70 years. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Several of you can commiserate on merging the campuses. Jamie, thank you for coming. You'll still be in the drawing, just so you know. So if you do win and you're not here, we will email you. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many ways where our data can go wrong, and ultimately it's how clean is it? Is it in the right field? Is it usable? It's fixable. Most things are fixable, but it certainly takes the time. Yes, Emily, I absolutely hate seeing both names in the first name field. It is a former boss of mine, when I first started consulting, she called them double headers, which sounds nicer than they are. But yes, the double headers make life so complicated.
Yeah. And one of the things we, because we're all kind of playing from the same team here, is that it's important not to be too hard on ourselves and the people that use our database, because
Definitely.
while we strive for 100% accuracy, our job and responsibility is to get as close as we can to that. And knowing that there will be mistakes that are made, but having the tools kind of in our back pocket to understand how to fix them is kind of why what makes us so valuable on our teams.
Mickey's question is about accounting department taking the DAF letter saying something's unrestricted, even though the original donor specifies a restricted use. That gets into something really sticky, because what the donor has told you versus what happened with the DAF. I think you need to really cross all your T's and dot all of your I's, because the wishes are important, but I know there are some legalities with DAFs that I don't want to presume I know.
The answer there. Sorry for interrupting,
No,
Christine.
go
The
for
answer
it.
there is documentation. Because where this is going to come up specifically for your organization, taking stewardship out of the equation, but where it's going to come up in your organization is in the audit. And especially if it's a large dollar amount, chances are your auditor will ask for documentation from those transactions. And if the letter that accompanies that donor advised fund gift says this gift is unrestricted, the gift is unrestricted. Now, if you can get email confirmation from the donor, or even written confirmation, signed confirmation from the donor that it needs to go somewhere else, that's a kind of a different story. But making sure you have the documentation is most important. A phone call isn't going to cut it when the auditor is asking for documentation for a designation, or even a pledge or a pledge balance. A lot of that stuff comes up in the audit, and she's got to make sure you have your documentation.
And Jenny, I think, determining which way is the right way is the biggest thing for all of us. One thing I tell all my clients this, and so several of you have already heard these kinds of things from me, but figure out how you need to use the data and what reports you need and what that end result looks like, and use that end result to determine how you're going to do it in the long run. Soft credits are a perfect example, and DAFs. So we'll just start with that. I have clients who hard credit the DAF and soft credit the donor. I have clients who hard credit the donor and soft credit the DAF. Now, which one is right is going to depend on so many factors in your system. So I say that to say, it's not that I'm saying some of my clients are right and some of them are wrong. There's been a different level of decision-making for all of them. Yes, Mary Beth, soft crediting, that's when I say we've gone Oprah with the soft crediting. If the soft credit is for the relationship rather than actual relationships, it's not an appropriate soft credit.
Yeah. I always say that consistency is more important than industry standard. So if you're doing something maybe in a way that's against industry standard, or a way that against the way that other organizations do it, it's not the end of the world if you're doing it the same way every time. Soft credits is a perfect example. If I'm managing the database and I do soft credits, I hard credit the DAF and soft credit the donor, but then Christine comes in after I leave and does it the exact opposite way. we cannot report on our data anymore. So doing it consistently is the number one thing. I say this probably in every single webinar. Documentation of your policies and procedures is super important. Making sure that everyone understands what those procedures are, and that you review them on an annual basis so that you're staying up to date with your trends.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thank you all very much for that.
Yes. Great
For all the
conversation.
stories. Yeah. Now it's time for a
Yes.
raffle.
The
Yeah.
moment we've all been waiting for.
So this list, I have the list updated in here, and this is as of I think probably I checked about 11:30. So if anyone registered after 11:30, I apologize. But this is everyone that registered. Not everyone that's here, but everyone that registered. You do not need to be present to win. And so I will go ahead and spin the wheel.
I
Well,
think you
so
need to spin again.
yeah, Austin is is another consultant, Pranger
And
Solutions
she's
Certificates.
wonderful.
Yeah, we love
Yes,
Austin.
we love
And
Austin.
we will have
I,
hours of conversation with Austin whenever she wants, but we want these hours to go
let's go for
to
a client or, an
yeah, to someone from
organization.
an organization. We're going to spin again. Emily.
Emily
All right, nice.
McMillan. Congratulations.
All right, Emily, Christine will
Well,
reach out to you. She has your
yes,
contact information.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
all right. So we talked about different ways that we help our clients. Here are some kind of specific examples. We do all of our consulting engagements are very customized. Here are some ways that we help most of our clients. So we do a fixed rate service called database assessment. We also do very customized in-person and remote training. And then we also just sell out buckets of hours that we're able to kind of use them however you'd like. And so sometimes it's a combination of all the things that we do. Sold that way. So if you have any interest, and actually that's going to be our last poll question of the day. If I can I closed out my poll question, closed out my poll questions. Let me open them back up. Where are my poll questions? Dang it. Do you have them up, Christine?
1 second.
Oh man.
Oh, yeah, I got
Okay.
it.
Our last poll question: who is ready to have NPact help calm your database nightmares?
And just a side note for those of you who are already customers, if you're getting close to the end of your bucket, we do have some end of year pricing. So reach out to your consultants and let them know if you're interested in adding to your bucket because we've got some deals with end of year wrapping up. So
Yeah,
let us know.
absolutely. So I already mentioned about next month's Level Up webinar. We're going to talk about workflows in Razor's Edge NXT and a little bit of automation. So make sure you look on LinkedIn, looked in your email. We'll send out invitations all over the place. If you have any topics that you'd like us to talk about, feel free to email myself or Christine. This is one of the highlights of my month is doing this webinar. And so we'd love to talk about what you guys want to hear about.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us and congratulations, Emily.
Yes. Thank you all.